Well, welcome everybody to this hustings. Usual thing about Zoom, please, you know, be on mute and only come off mute. Well, we're asking the candidates to come off mute when they are speaking. We're hoping you don't have any problems with Zoom. If it does drop out for you, it tends to try and dial back in. So, you know, give it chance. If not, go back to the original link. And welcome to all the voting groups and this first election for Grassroots for Europe and the Council. We have 73 groups who've registered to vote, and they're representing supporters from 10 up to 2,000 or even 3,000. So quite a mix. And from areas consisting of one constituency, like mine, to regions or even whole countries. And there's at least one nationwide group amongst those 73. I think that shows the variety that constitutes Grassroots for Europe, and I think we can all be proud of that. As you know, most of you know, you should know by now, the election is running from Monday to Sunday next week. That's Monday the 1st of February to Sunday the 7th of February inclusive. It starts at 1 minute after midnight on the Monday and it ends at 1 minute before midnight on the Sunday. It's all part of the system. And I think you all know each group gets one vote. It's probably worthwhile. It has been sent round in an email to every voting group, but it's probably worthwhile me saying again how you will be voting. When the polls open, each group will get an email from choicevoting.co.uk email address, and that will contain the voting method and a link. You will need that email to make your vote. People can't just hack the site. I certainly hope. I do recommend you have a pretty good idea of who to vote for before you actually vote. It will just make it easier for yourself that way. As I said in the email that you will have seen on the voting site, you'll get three sections. You'll get the chair, you will choose one and submit. You'll get the vice chair, again, choose one and submit.
1.5 minute warning and a half-minute warning, and people are chopped off at the end of 5 minutes.
I'm getting another voice. Can whoever that is go on mute?
They must have registered for a vote as a separate entity.
Somebody's on. Somebody's not on mute, please.
I will continue when it's clear that that person has finished. Okay, or gone on mute. Okay. As I was saying, chair, you will choose one and submit. In the next section, you'll have for the vice chair candidates, choose one and submit. And for the council member, you can choose up to 9. Actually, the more the better, really. Put your favourites at the top. Don't worry, you can reorder the list once you've selected them, and then submit. It's really that simple, but it's probably worth you hearing it from me verbally rather than seeing it written down. Another thing to bear in mind is don't worry about voting for the same person twice. Whoever wins the vote for the chair and the vote for vice chair will not be counted again for council member. Otherwise, they'd be counted twice. That doesn't make sense. So you can include somebody in more than one section if you wish. How will the rest of this hustings proceed? Well, we've got 73 groups and 17 candidates. So after some discussion, we decided that open questions from the floor were not really practical. And we needed to be fair between all the candidates. So we're asking candidates to speak in a random order for a maximum of 4 to 5 minutes. We're asking them to comment or answer 3 different questions which they have previously seen. Those questions are: what personal qualities and experience do you bring to the Grassroots for Europe Council? What do you think Grassroots for Europe should now be undertaking? And what are your perspectives on the UK rejoining the EU? We've tried to make those questions reasonably open and not trying to predict the answer too much, so be relatively neutral. We're aware that you will not have the chance for lots of questions and bombarding the candidates with questions. If any group has questions for any particular or a number of candidates afterwards, the candidates have said they're willing to share their email addresses with particular groups. So by all means, drop me an email. I'll get on it as soon as I can and pass you those email addresses. So unless Andy has any notes any particular problems, or Caroline thinks I've forgotten anything.
No, I think we're fine. Just a reminder, if you're not speaking, please have your audio on mute and your video disabled, just to minimize any potential issues with bandwidth. Thank you.
Okay. As I said previously, we'll now go through the candidates in this random order. I won't necessarily repeat the questions with each candidate because that will get a bit repetitive. But if any candidate wishes to hear the questions again, that's absolutely fine, of course. I will repeat them once and then ask the first candidate. The questions are: what personal qualities and experience do you bring to the Grassroots for Europe Council? What do you think Grassroots for Europe should now be undertaking? And what are your perspectives on the UK rejoining the EU? Okay, the first candidate who was chosen is Graham Hughes, and he is standing for, well, as luck would have it, he's standing for Chair, Vice Chair and Council Member. So,
I think I
Graham,
ticked too many things. Thanks, John. Can I go ahead?
you can go ahead, and Andy is timing.
Okay, cool. So, hello, my name is Graham Hughes. I'm a 41-year-old filmmaker from Liverpool, England. I'm an award-winning filmmaker. I'm an author, TV presenter, double Guinness World Record holder, Ireland winner, founder of Global Scouse Day, and the only person to visit every country in the world without flying. In April 2017, I abandoned my life of adventure to stand as an independent anti-Brexit MP. In one of the most safe Labour seats in the country. I lost quite badly, but the point was made, and from then on, I was firmly ensconced in the movement to remain in the EU. In 2017, in September 2017, I emceed the People's March for Europe with 50,000 people in London, which was fantastic. In the summer of 2018, I launched the Three Blokes in a Pub pubcast, which took me to Brussels, Gibraltar, Northern Ireland, and the WTO, the actual WTO, to speak to representatives there about this madness that we were embarking on. We had loads of guests, including MPs, MEPs, lords, grassroots activists, in limboers, farmers, fishermen, lorry drivers, you name it. In January 2019, I launched Project Hope with Mike Galsworthy, helping with social media for grassroots groups around the country. I might have designed your logo. And in September 2019, I helped organize the anti-Brexit march and rally in Manchester for Europe. More recently, I've started presenting daily live and interactive Brexit reality shows on, that's what it's called, #BrexitReality on YouTube. I've launched rejoineu.uk. I worked with Richard to kickstart the Road to Rejoin Grassroots meetings on Zoom every Wednesday. And I've also been working behind the scenes to make the Festival of Europe 2020 a reality. So my skills include public speaking, filmmaking, presenting, logistics, website creation, design, writing, YouTubing, if that's a thing, ideas, and truckloads of enthusiasm. My aims for Grassroots for Europe include, first of all, learning from our experiences as Remainers, we're now Rejoiners. I'm not going over the things we did in the past that maybe we should have done differently. So my number one thing is to help democratize and invigorate the movement. I want Grassroots for Europe that is supportive and nurturing, that is incredibly accessible. I want everyone to be as accessible as humanly possible. I want communication and mediation between the groups and between individuals to be at the top of our list of priorities, to make sure that we're all there together, brainstorming, crowdsourcing, making sure everyone gets a say, and being a shot in the arm for the pro-EU movement. We don't have the media, we don't have the politicians on our side, we don't have much in the way of funding, but we have the numbers to make a real impact. Don't forget, over 1 million people came to London on 3 separate occasions to protest against Brexit. That's 1 million activists. And if you want to know what you can do with 1 million people, have a look at what happened this week with GameStop and Wall Street Bets on Reddit. So apart from sort of working on the weekly meetings, we need a website, I think, that something like ClickUp or Discord or something, so we can have meetings online where we're all putting stuff into one group that we can all see, and then we can go into our own little meeting groups to talk about our own grassroots areas, things that we're concerned about, and part of the steps along the way to rejoining the EU that need to be done, and people playing to their strengths. And I don't want to be an organization that tells its members or tells the little groups, you know, you've got to do it this way, you've got to do it that way. I think that we don't know what's going to work. It's my philosophy, but we know what's not going to work, and that's doing nothing. So we need to be smart. We need to be patient. We need to work together. There's not one single route to rejoining, but there are certain political, structural, and societal changes that need to happen in order for Britain, or whatever's left of Britain in a few years' time, to take back its rightful place in the European Union. I want to use our diversity as an asset and help drive forward everything that needs to happen in order for us to rejoin the EU before this decade is out. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. You were absolutely on time, I think. Excellent. Next, we have Joe Pye, who's standing as a normal member, council member, sorry. Over to you, Joe.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Joe Pye. I'm 67. I'm a bilingual Anglo-Italian, and I've been conscious of being European all my life. I am incandescent with rage at all things Brexit, but I'm committed to taking part in any activities that oppose Brexit and ultimately lead to the UK rejoining the EU as soon as possible. What personal qualities and experience do I bring to GfE Council? For the purposes of this exercise, it's useful for me to say that my professional careers have turned me into a communicator and an administrator, and I believe that's going to be useful in building a new organisation from scratch. I've never been an activist anything until Brexit, and since then I've become a serial volunteer with, I believe, a proven track record as a team player. I actively take part in several key related campaigning and endeavours, the European Movement, UPEN and the Rejoin Register, and I subscribe to March for Change and Best for Britain, amongst others. I am in the EM, European Movement. I'm a committee member in London for Europe and a regional rep for Greater London members on the EM National Council. I've been a member of GfE's core team since December 2019, and I helped organise the national conference in January 2020 and the new interim GfE constitution and these elections. I'm a founding member of the Grassroots for Europe Roundtable Initiative, which I hold very dearly because it's a collaboration of the key players. I'm a member of the ACPEN and Rejoin Register teams. Please sign up to the Rejoin Register as soon as you can. I'm a founding member of the new GfE Festival of Europe 2022 Organising Committee. I've campaigned outside the House of Commons, and I've taken part in street stalls, rallies, marches, training sessions, nationally and locally. I've seen firsthand what goes into active campaigning and the energy it takes from our activists. And the well-being of activists matter to me. You may ask, don't all these roles conflict? No, they don't. They provide useful synergies and help build a unified and coordinated approach, which was so lacking in the Remain cause before the general election. What do I think Grassroots for Europe should now be undertaking? Well, Grassroots for Europe is a group-based network of grassroots active groups. They choose what they wish to pursue in their own way. It's not a top-down organisation. The new council will be their device, your device. I see the role of the new National Council as facilitating and supporting these groups in practical ways with resources, facilities, expertise, training, and branding will be their choice, I suppose. What are my perspectives on the UK? I want to see the UK back in the EU as soon as possible. I appreciate that this may take some years and will require changes to our national, civil, political, and emotional ecosystems. I intend to be part of these while I'm still able. In conclusion, what do I bring to the new GfE National Council? I believe I bring admin and communication skills to help build a sustainable new body from scratch, plus a commitment to pro-European and pro-EU causes, including rejoining as soon as practicable. I have very useful connections, I have available time, I have energy, and I have no desire to remain forever in post. So I won't be sitting here if you elect me, I won't sit here for good and all. Above all, I believe that campaigning should be focused, collaborative, resource efficient, sustainable, and humane. Why do I mention humane? We are all volunteers of all ages and experience. We deserve good structures to support us in this chaotic world. No one should be left overwhelmed or stuck in a role. Youth must be encouraged and mentored by experience. If elected, I shall do my best for you, and I entreat you to hold me to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Now we've got Hania Osulik. I hope I pronounced your surname correctly. Hania?
Osulik.
Osulik, okay, thank you. It's over to you now. Hania?
Thank you. Good evening. Our country is fairer, more compassionate, more powerful and more prosperous as a member of the European Union. This much we all know. But public knowledge and opinion has been manipulated by a barrage of misinformation about the EU and false promises of a better life outside it. No downsides, only considerable upsides, we were told. As a leading campaign organisation, Grassroots for Europe should take on the challenge of correcting the misinformation which has become normalised in the public domain. A public education programme is crucial for exposing the lies of the Leave campaign and re-informing the population on the meaning of EU membership. What is the single market? What is freedom of movement? What is EU law? All these are advantages of EU membership that we've taken for granted and which have been taken away from us against our will and against the best interests of the citizens. Leave won with lies, but as John Danzig reminds us, knowledge is power and the antidote to lies is truth. Knowledge will turn public opinion to our favour and truth will become our pathway back to full membership of the European Union. but only if knowledge and truth is made available in the public domain and becomes mainstream in public discourse. Awareness raising and education should be Grassroots Europe's priority. How can this be achieved? By collaborating with groups that share our goals, such as European Movement and Best for Britain, and drawing on the unique selling points of each organisation. Diversity is our strength if we're clever in how we approach it. By utilising the resources already available and promoting knowledge that's already out there. Double Down News, the Good Law Project, Reasons to Rejoin, A Different Bias, to name just a few. And by organising and coordinating focused projects which draw on the skill sets available at the volunteer base, be it media appearances, engagement with the press, leaflet design, film, documentaries, themed events, and many more campaign actions that enable us to develop an all-rounded multimedia approach, which reaches far and wide outside our core bubble of supporters. I see my role as one which engages the youth population in the campaign. Young people have been underrepresented in the political discourse and totally shafted by the Brexit deal, possibly to a larger extent than the rest of us. I want to help grassroots groups build links in the local universities to help students set up Europe societies, which will provide a platform for political engagement in the student community. These societies need to be supported and sustained. The project will develop a resource bank of information, guidance, and support. Young people have often been seen to be disengaged in the pro-EU campaign. I strongly dispute this view. Young people have passion, energy, openness, and a very strong interest in regaining their European rights and opportunities that have been taken away. Their contribution can only be sustained if there is a platform available for their voice and participation. This project aims to provide that platform. To finish, we're experiencing a sad and painful chapter in our country's history. But within this passionate grassroots movement, we have the optimism, ambition, and energy that is needed to reach out to those that we need to win over. Our opponents are not the public. Our opponents are those few at the centre of this extremist government clinging on to power at any cost, even at the expense of robbing its own citizens of the rights and protections that we have grown to cherish and expect. We and the wider public are on the same side. We just need to reveal the truth with empathy, understanding, and compassion towards others.
Thank you, Hania. And the next person is Sharon Leclerc-Spooner. Hi, Sharon. Oh, you've come off mute already. The floor is yours for 5
everybody.
minutes.
Thank you, John. Well, I've lived, loved, and worked in Brussels since 30 years. Europe is my life. I'm married to a Frenchman. I have 3 children who are Franco-British. Now they've got Belgian nationalities. I've taken on a Belgian nationality in order to safeguard my rights. I was furious about Brexit, to put it absolutely mildly. And I really feel that I need to bring my experience to bear in stopping this huge historic mistake, in reversing it. Professionally, I came to Brussels initially to do an internship in the European Commission in the single market unit. So I have a pretty good understanding of all of that. And I've been working in corporate media, trade associations. I really know how Brussels works. My husband founded a media called Euractiv, which I've been involved in the governance of since the beginning. Euractiv was all about bringing transparency to Brussels, to how the European institutions work. Now, it was about bringing transparency more to people who are involved so that they could understand each other, because so much is about crossing bridges between different stakeholders. It's a reflection of a very deep commitment to Europe and making Europe work better. I took on chairmanship of Pro Europa in 2018. In a way, it was a little bit like a kind of mini Grassroots for Europe reaction to the broader pro-European movement, in the sense that some of our members felt that we needed to be much, much more grassroots and out there, and not shy to step out of the hallowed debates of Brussels. So, what's the most important thing that I bring to the council? It's a deep, strong Brussels links. I'm absolutely steeped in the European ideal. I learned about it as a student when I was studying with people from Eastern Europe before the fall of the Berlin Wall, and from Portugal and Spain, Greece, countries that were under dictatorship. We must not take it for granted. I'm very well networked in Brussels, also on the EU-US. At one point during the TTIP negotiations, I was chairing the American Chamber of Commerce Committee on Trade, so I knew the negotiators on both sides. I'm still involved in the business side of Brexit, but it's really the personal thing that kind of just motivates me so much. And I've been trying very hard to get the business community to be more vocal than they have been. I really appreciated being co-opted into the steering group of Grassroots for Europe. We had hosted different groups, grassroots groups have come over to Brussels by bike, to speak. We've had Alex speaking at one of our events. Richard, I just thought, my God, Richard just understands Europe, which is seemed fairly rare for people coming from the UK. And so that's been fabulous. In Brussels ourselves, we've actually hosted different groups. We organised this year a kind of COVID poster campaign using posters from all around the grassroots networks. The British in Europe group actually got onto the front page of Reuters over the New Year, which was fabulous. So we had a vigil outside Brussels. That was amazing, and that's thanks to Babs, which we work with. And we've just keep doing it. I've been very happy to be on the round table, and I hope that I will be able to continue to really bring in the Brussels expertise. Within Pro Europa, we have 2,000 people on our mailing list. It's officials, stakeholders, citizens, people who have got nothing to do with the institutions, but are just working in Brussels, whether it's as a nurse or an engineer or a technician or what have you. And so what we've managed to do in our little group is to merge the grassroots and the sort of more expert things together, and that's what I hope to be able to bring into the council. What do I think we need to do? I think we need to get better organised, and we need to be really focused on mutual support.
Sorry.
Oh, it's completely up, is it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Okay. I'm sorry. I've gone on, and yeah.
Don't worry, Sharon. Don't worry.
Want to help reunite Europe and bring all the systems together again.
Don't worry, Sharon. You're making a lot of sense. Next, we have Alex Gunter. There are two Alexes. Alex Gunter.
Hi, hello. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, John, particularly, and Caroline, for organising this. I'm going to start off on a slightly more negative note to change the tone a little bit, because I think we really need to be realistic. The voting public is very, very happy that the Brexit wars, as they see it, are over. And this is true even if they look at Brexit and regret it, because the polls tell us they do. But this is an advantage. This is an advantage because we can take our time and we can build up an ecosystem of pro-Europeans and pro-democracy groups across the UK, linking with Europe. And we can build a movement together, playing on our individual strengths and patching over our individual weaknesses to create the stepping stones to rebuild back those connections with Europe we really need. We need to restore the freedom of movement. We need to restore the single market, the customs union. And then once we've achieved these simple steps, well, I say simple, but steps nonetheless, rejoin will be so obvious that our campaigning will be simple. We have to rebuild the case for rejoin. We need to do it slowly and surely, but we need to do it decisively. Grassroots Europe has become a very powerful movement, the pro-European space. It's powerful, and it will need to take a central role in building this grand ecosystem of individual small groups and large groups, catering to different sectors of society with different specialities or localities. And with that, they need to build and reach out to more people than ever before. We can't keep repeating what we've been doing. We must reach out of the bubble. Now, reaching out of the bubble doesn't mean persuading leaders. What it means is persuading sympathetic people to us who are not yet active, who have not been activated. And I think the best example for that is my generation. My generation are massively pro-European. They hate every aspect with Brexit. There is nothing that advantages us at all. We lose our freedom, we lose our rights, and we lose the country that we want to grow up in. But at the same time, how many young people did you see during campaigns during these last few years? Yes, there's a few heavy hitters, Femi with OFOC, the Young European Movement, and FFS. But on the whole, these were a small minority. So Grassroots for Europe needs to connect all of the networks, all of the people groups. It needs to reach out and break the bubble and empower different groups of people, so we can create a movement that is wide, encompassing, and actually makes a difference. We need messages to resonate with people. We need to resonate with people by linking Brexit, the high-level complexities of it, with real issues on the ground. This is easy to do now, and it's going to continue to be easy if we keep on top of everything. We need to keep reminding people that Brexit is causing problems. And if we do this, if we continue to highlight the fallout that Brexit has created, we can mobilize just as many people as People's Vote mobilized. I bet we could probably mobilize more. So it's important that we don't keep making the mistakes from the past. We need to get away from the old Remainer brand. We must break that bubble, but we must rebrand ourselves into rejoiners, a new brand of political movement that doesn't have the baggage of the old Brexit wars that went before us. Rejoin needs to be the sensible, the obvious, and the patriotic solution to Brexit. And with local support and local campaigns, sparking conversations in pubs, cafes, and workplaces across the country, we can make Rejoin so obvious that it is the natural way forward. The joy of Grassroots for Europe is we are connecting together so many small, unique groups that have access to local communities that the large organizations just don't have. I first went to a very first political march in my life in 2016. It was September. It was a very small little march, but it still had a big impact on me. Ever since then, I've been so angered and frustrated with the campaign. I felt that I had to do something. And one of the things that always stuck out to me, there was never enough support for the grassroots activities. Because as I've said, grassroots movements are so effective. They change minds within communities. They change the discussion that happens in cafes, that happens in pubs, that happens on streets, in shops, and in the family itself. I was so enraged about this that back in 2018, together with Gareth Steele, who you may all know, we founded an organization called UCPEN. We got together and we collected the most accurate database of local groups across the country. And we were amazed that the European movement and Best for Britain and Britain for Europe at the time.
That's time, Alex, sorry.
Sorry?
That's your time up. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Thanks anyway. And I just want to say thank you so much, and hopefully you vote for me.
Okay, Andy, we're having difficulty hearing the bell.
Okay, I'll move to the big bell. You won't have a problem with that one.
I'd move to the big bell. It's difficult to hear.
Okay.
Next, after Alex, we have Peter Packham.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. My granddad was one of 7 children, He was born into a fairly poor family in rural Kent. And very early on in his teens, as a lot of people did at that time, he joined the army as some sort of escape. He ended up actually in the 4th Hussars, which was Churchill's regiment, probably because he could ride a horse. Now, he served through the 1920s, through the 1930s, and fought in the Second World War, that war so beloved by all Brexitists. Now, the thing is, with my granddad, I don't know what he thought about the Second World War, because from the time that he came home to the time that he died, he wouldn't speak to anybody about it. He wouldn't discuss it at all. But I think we have a bit of a clue in that these are his medals. They're still in the box that they were sent in. They're still wrapped in this sort of funny greaseproof paper. The ribbons are unattached. And the instructions are still there explaining how to put the medals together. So I think that gives you a pretty good idea of what he thought of war. And actually, he wasn't the only one in his family who fought in a world war. His older brother, John, he was also a regular. He was in the Queen's Own Royal West Kents, and he fought in the First World War, being killed in 1916. So why is that relevant to what we're talking about tonight? Well, it's relevant because I think the EU's greatest achievement has been promoting and maintaining peace in Europe over the last sort of 70 years. And what that's meant to a family like mine, where 2 brothers fought in 2 separate world wars, and we go to the next 3 generations down, my dad, myself, and my son, we haven't had to go to war. And that's down to the European Union. And that's what informs my perceptions of rejoining the European Union. I think it's the morally right thing to do. And I think our campaign it's to rejoin. No ifs, no buts, no compromise. It's to rejoin as full members of the European Union. Now, on the way, it may be that we can negotiate to join institutions like Erasmus or the single market or the customs union, but our ultimate goal has to be to rejoin as full market members. And that campaign, I think, starts now. We've an opportunity at the moment to capitalise on the issues occurring in trade, in businesses, and we can show that the solution to those problems is getting closer to the European Union. It's almost the first time we can have a positive message about being in the European Union. So what should Grassroots for Europe be doing as part of that campaign? Well, as has been said before, we are a grassroots organisation, and that is one of our great strengths. We've got many good people, many talented, many creative people all over the country, all feeding into this great movement, but we are fragmented. So to me, Grassroots for Europe needs to bring these fragmented groups together while still allowing for local creativity. So as has been said earlier as well, we should be looking at things like sharing best practice amongst the groups, enabling groups to share good things that they're doing. Grassroots should coordinate the message so that we have a consistent message going forward, not by imposing that message on the members, but by listening to what the individual groups are doing and agreeing on it through collaboration and agreement. Grassroots should also take responsibility to build relationships with the EU, MEPs like Terry Rinker, various other organisations. So what do I bring to the group, and what would I bring to the council? Well, I was actually pretty late to the fight. I only joined Leads for Europe a couple of years ago, but since then I've been very active within the group. I'm the treasurer of the group. I manage the Facebook page, and in the 18 months that I've been in charge of that, I've grown the followers from something like 5,000 to 24,000. I've been very active on street stalls. I've marched 4 times in London. I've spoken at conference rallies, and also I can bring leadership, experience public speaking, project management, putting a proposition together and communicating, enhancing key messages, and I retired, so I have the time. So in summary, misquoting Eric Morecambe, I've answered all the right questions, but not necessarily in the right order. And I would ask for you next week to vote for Peter Packham as your member on the Grassroots for Europe National Council.
Thanks, Peter. I apologies, I was muted, so I let you run over a little bit because you wouldn't have heard my bell.
Right.
Yes, thanks, Peter. Next we have, it's Paul Wilner from Wales. We have Paul Wilner on, I believe. I thought I saw him a few minutes ago.
He's here.
Yes. Hello, Paul.
Hello, John. I can't switch on my video because it says you've muted it.
Bear with me. You should be able to now.
No, still not. Would you like me to go on just sound only, no visual?
Hi, it's Paul Brown here. I think you've got the wrong Paul there. Hello? It's Paul Brown here from Cambridge. I think you've got the wrong Paul you're looking for.
Can you try again, Andy? I think they're saying you might have.
No, I'm working on Paul Wilner, but
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, hello,
hello,
there we
Paul.
go.
Welcome.
So I'm Paul. Nice to be here finally. So I'm standing to represent Wales on the council as the nominee of Wales for Europe. I was a founder member of Wales for Europe. I actually called the first meeting that led to Wales for Europe being set up towards the end of 2016. I'm on the executive committee which coordinates the work of the 18 local groups. We have groups across the whole of Wales. I'm also on a smaller management group. In 2017, I set up Swansea for Europe, which I chaired until a few months ago. It was one of the largest and most active of the Welsh pro-EU groups. Like most groups, we're now down to a small core of activists, but we have over 800 on our mailing list, of whom 250 to 300 engage with the mails we send out. We have more than 4,000 followers on Twitter, 5,000 followers on Facebook. You know, we're relaunching now and expect to build up a big and active campaign. Since standing down as chair of Swansea for Europe, I've represented Wales for Europe on the European Movement campaigns team, and I'm one of 2 reps from Wales who attend the Grassroots roundtable. I'm totally committed to rejoining the EU, but like Peter who's just spoken, it was the peace achievements of the EU that brought me into the movement. I'm the child of Jewish refugees in 1939, and peace is one of the greatest achievements the world has seen. I think to have peace in Europe for 75 years. I think rejoining will happen. It's going to take a long time, probably more than 10 years. There's space in the movement to include groups campaigning now to rejoin, and I applaud that effort. I hope Gina Miller and some of the other speakers this evening are right that it will happen much sooner, but realistically, I think the best we can aspire to is to move very close to the EU, perhaps rejoining the Single Market Customs Union after the next general election in probably 2023 to 4, with rejoining as a target for the following general election in perhaps 2028, 29. To get anywhere at all, we need to evict this government at the next general election. We also need the incoming government to share our pro-European aspirations. The current position of the Labour Party is really worrying in that respect. I'm a member of the Labour Party, so I've recently joined Labour for a European Future and the Labour Movement for Europe to support those campaigns to shift Labour policy to where it needs to be. What should Grassroots for Europe be doing? I think 3 things centrally. First, the round table serves as a very effective information exchange to share information between the different pro-European groups. We need to continue and strengthen that activity. We need to promote ways for pro-EU groups to work together. It's one of the most important things that Grassroots as an umbrella organisation can do. In particular, I think we need to develop a shared narrative so that whatever the specific focus of our national and local campaigning, we're telling a common story about the situation we're in, how we got here, and what a route map out might look like. This is essential, I think, to combat the very strong narrative that we can be sure the other side will deploy. And third, I think Grassroots for Europe is very well placed to identify good practice and organise training to pro-EU groups on methods for setting, implementing and monitoring campaigning aims. To beat the other side, we need to be much more professional than this movement has been over the last 4 to 5 years. Finally, I want to say that I very much support the decision that the Grassroots for Europe and the organisers of this election have made to recognise that the whole of the UK, including Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, as well as EU expats, need to be represented on the council. We can't afford to repeat past mistakes with a top-down, centralised, London-based leadership. Okay, I heard the bell.
Thank you, Paul. Now, do we have Jill de Serra online? I don't think I've seen her
I don't
name,
think we
but
do, unless she's under an alias.
could be under an alias. Identify yourself by raising your hand if you are under an alias. I'm not seeing anybody. I think she.
I have, is it Jill de Serra? I have tried to ring her and she's not answering at the moment. I think there must be she must have a problem somewhere.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
not like her. She's a fabulous lady.
Yes, being unable to attend doesn't disqualify you from the election in any shape or form. Okay, the next person on the list is a name that will be some of you. It's Richard Wilson.
Hello, thank you, John. Hello, everybody. Just a few introductory comments about myself. I'm very proud to be one of the founder members of Leads for Europe, which is just over 4 years ago, back in January 2017, and I'm still chair of that group. Probably my highlight, whilst with Leads for Europe, was to organise the Great Northern Stop Brexit March, which we held in March 2018, which was at that time was the largest political march that Leeds had ever seen, I think, and also very much enjoyed organising the Great Northern Stop Brexit conferences that some of you may have gone to in September 2018 and 2019, and they were a bit of a prototype for the Grassroots for Europe conference that I and others organised in January last year, just almost exactly a year ago in Central Hall in Westminster. My actual qualities, I would say, is a passion for this cause verging on obsession, organisational ability, hard work, experience of leadership, and a commitment, a very strong commitment to a democratic and transparent way of working in organisations like this. And also, you know, I like to encourage others to bring forward their ideas and to help them in any way that I can. On the question of the UK rejoining the EU, as others have said, I think it is extremely important that we as a movement and we as an organisation are very clear about what we are trying to achieve, which as far as I'm concerned is to rejoin the EU as soon as possible, in a way that sticks. So, you know, we need to build that groundswell of opinion that people really strongly want to join the EU, and when we go in, the EU will recognise that we definitely want to be back in for good. As far as I'm concerned, that is the fundamental goal of Grassroots for Europe, and I hope it stays that. The question is, and the discussion we're going to have in the coming months and years, is what strategy do we use, what tactics, what organisation do we need to bring that about? That debate has started quite recently, and it's still got some way to go, and it will continue, obviously, forever, really, to talk about how we're going to get there. But initially at this point, I say that there are two main things that we need to campaign on, two approaches. We need to campaign on one hand negatively. We need to make sure that the British public are made aware of the negative effects of Brexit. There is a temptation perhaps to sit back and let Brexit speak for itself in terms of its manifest flaws, but I think this would be a mistake because we have to be aware that the pro-Brexit politicians and media, they don't sit back. They are constantly twisting the story. They're constantly feeding the nationalist sentiment in order to solidify the current status quo of Brexit and to solidify that Remain-Leave divide as if it's locked for all time. So we need to combat that. But at the same time, we need to be positive, and there are so many opportunities for us to be positive about how building connections to Europe can be a good thing, and it is a good thing. If it's a long-term project, we need to, I think, start looking at cultural questions. I think the Festival of Europe is a great idea. I think twinning, I think exchanges, we need to encourage language learning. These, if you start to see Europe around about in the streets and celebration of Europe, it's the way to build that warmth and that emotional connection of people to Europe, and I think that's really important, as well as the more technical matters of trade and movement of goods and things like that. We also obviously need to talk about peace, security, friendship, and free movement, things like that. So I support the concept of building blocks initially, but we've just got to keep that long-term goal in mind about we want it to lead us to rejoin. As far as Grassroots for Europe is concerned, it has always, as far as I'm concerned, been about supporting and encouraging local groups. Its mentality is to trust and respect local groups and to respect the capabilities of the many thousands of activists that we have. We need to continue with that. We need to continue to collaborate. We need the things like the round table to keep going. And we need to maintain good relationships with the other organisations like the European Movement, Best for Britain, and so on. But I think Grassroots for Europe, I think the time has come to step up. I think we were a little bit reticent about being too bullish and too assertive. I think now we need to step into that void. We need to show leadership to the movement, and we need to support the groups, and we need to raise our profile. And that's really what this election is part of that process.
Time up, Richard.
Yeah, just one closing bit. We need to talk about rejoin, because if we don't, nobody will. And if nobody's talking about rejoin, it's not going to happen. That's down to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. The next person is Izzy Knowles, who, yes, the floor is yours, Izzy.
Hi, everybody. So I'm a retired police officer, and I'm a core member of EU in Brum. And I helped lead the organisation of the Bin Brexit in Brum rally to the Conservative Conference in 2018. And in July 2019, I gave a speech at the People's Vote rally in Birmingham. Then I got a job with MEP Phil Benyon and organised a visit of 50 West Midlands people to the European Parliament. And we took protests into the streets of Brussels and met up with pro-Europa and others. And it even went as far as in December 2019 standing as a candidate in the general election. So since January 2020, I've been volunteering with Settled, helping EU citizens with their settled status. I've got very strong organisation and communication skills, and I'm passionate about the fight to rejoin the EU. I think Grassroots for Europe have done an amazing job at coordinating and keeping the pro-EU groups working together without the huge funding that organisations like the People's Vote attracted. And I think that needs to continue to be a focus in the next year, plus building on the skills and the contacts and the campaigning tools we've developed in the last 5 years. I'd like to see set clear goals around working with campaigns such as Best for Britain, Make Votes Matter, the Byline News, ensure not only our politicians and our press are held to account, but also demonstrate that there are other ways of doing politics that enables people to be heard without being destructive. We should also continue to focus on engaging young people and our ethnic minority groups. I saw I'll call it an anti-Farage video, but today, that's being circulated around a year 7 group of school children. Our young people are the ones who didn't vote for this outcome, and yet they've got to clean up the mess. And ethnic minorities, they haven't really been that involved in the anti-Brexit campaign, but they've borne the brunt of the anti-immigration lies. We can encourage and support both groups to harness the power that they will have over the next few years. We should continue to promote pro-EU values and advantages through events and contacts. In 2020, during lockdown, my neighbours held a joint VE Day and Europe Day celebration, and we wrote about both of them in our local community magazine. And Festival of Europe, well, bring it on. When I took the group to the European Parliament in 2019, 2 things stuck in my mind. One was a conversation about the poor understanding in the UK about how the EU works. Even between us passionately pro-EU Brits, we had very little actual knowledge. And the other was learning that the group of MEPs across the EU who regularly took the most school children to visit was UKIP, and how insanely complacent the pro-EU parties had been. So I think it's not going to be easy, and I think we have to be realistic about the hard work ahead. We'll have to be prepared and ready to take every opportunity we can. The crash after no deal was avoided, but the slow death of 1,000 cuts is already becoming apparent. Some people and businesses will adapt, but there's no doubt that we're heading for some very difficult times. And the next big crisis, which is likely to face us, is going to possibly break up of the UK. I think we will rejoin, and it will happen in my lifetime, but I don't think we will rejoin as a full member straight away. And that will be hard for some to accept, but it will be the natural course. The current Tory government will do their best to take us in the other direction, but I think trade deals are not going to be as easy as they think, and they will not show instant benefits, whereas the negative impacts of the things that we've lost, like the new VAT regime that's suddenly come in, they're not going to go away, and they're already being felt by the small businesses and individuals across the UK. The EU itself is also evolving and changing, and I think we also have to accept there's no going back to how it was in June 2016. So we have to take small steps and opportunities as they arise. And we can challenge things like Erasmus and the musician's visa, and we can go for easy wins. I'm a Lib Dem, but I think the first goal will be to get a Labour government in power and to steer them now and afterwards towards rejoining the customs union, the single market, getting into closer alignment, and the eventual move to full membership will then be so obvious and natural that it will just happen. I'm a pragmatist and I'm a realist, but I'm also hardworking, I'm passionate, I'm committed, and I have a strong sense of justice, and I don't give up. And I hope you'll vote for me, coming from the West Midlands, to be a member of the Grassroots for Europe Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Izzy. Next person on the list, remember the list is in random order, as picked earlier by Caroline, is Alex Pilkington.
Yes, he's just messaged me that actually he can't do it. His voice is completely gone and he's not feeling very well, and he's really disappointed. So.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. So we'll miss
As I said earlier, being unable to attend is should not be considered as a detriment to standing in the election. His statement has been circulated, as has everybody's. Yeah. Okay, next person on the list after Alex is Sue Wilson. If you want to bring yourself off mute, I see you have, and
thank you.
The floor is
Sorry,
yours.
I seem to be very dark, but I'm not quite sure why. I'm Sue Wilson, and I've been chair of Remain since September 2016. When I made the suggestion a few months ago that Brits abroad should be represented on the council, the response was both swift and positive. So I'd like to start by thanking Grassroots for Europe for supporting the rights of British citizens in the EU and for the opportunity they afforded me as an interim council member. It has been my pleasure to represent British citizens both at home and abroad, and if elected, I will continue to do so with energy and commitment. From the beginning, I have campaigned to stop Brexit, to build closer ties to the European Union, and for the protection of citizens' rights. not just those in the EU, but those in the UK too. In many speeches and in published articles, I have strongly challenged Brexit. That includes my legal challenge against Theresa May, which questioned the validity of the referendum and drew attention to many important issues. Managing a group of 6,000 members, largely Brits in Europe that have become increasingly disenfranchised, invisible, and excluded, has given me a unique insight into the consequences of Brexit. I have also fought for the rights of British citizens in the UK to study, work, live, love, and retire in the EU, opportunities that have been stripped away with the loss of our EU citizenship. With the backing of a dedicated, motivated, and experienced team of volunteers, I have built strong bonds with campaigners and politicians across the UK and in Europe. This has been a full-time commitment for almost 5 years, and one I have carried out with passion, determination, and optimism. It is a fight I cannot personally walk away from. Grassroots for Europe has been doing valuable and vital work with other campaign groups to unite, coordinate, and build trust. We must continue to build on these strengths. We must evidence all of the ways that Brexit is failing the country, failing businesses, and failing individuals. We must draw attention to the issues and point the finger of blame directly at those responsible. This means holding the government to account at every opportunity and demanding that Parliament does the same. We must work to build bridges and heal the divides, to support and convert the waverers, and to remember who is really at fault. The liars, not the lied to. We won't convert the extremists, but we need to secure hearts and minds and influence public opinion and the media. Grassroots for Europe needs to further develop its national profile. Great work is being done at the grassroots local level, but to achieve a greater presence nationally, we must increase our media and social media visibility. The UK made a terrible choice and a terrible mistake when it voted to leave the EU. Our rightful place is at the heart of the European Union with a say in the future of Europe. Nothing will ever convince me otherwise. Not only must we rejoin, but I believe it to be inevitable. Nothing else makes sense in this global world. Rejoining the single market and the customs union would mitigate an enormous amount of damage and draw us closer to Europe, but it cannot be the end goal. It would be welcome in the short term, but we must rejoin the decision makers at the EU table. That requires rebuilding trust with our European partners so that we can start to repair the damage to our international standing and our relations with the EU. Most believe it will take a decade before we could achieve our goal and rejoin the EU. But we must remain flexible, imaginative, and ready to act. The last 5 years have proven time and again that a week is a long time in politics. We must be prepared for action when any opportunity presents itself. It could well come sooner than we expect. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Next, we have Colin Gordon, who I would remind you is standing for Vice Chair as well as normal council member. Colin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. Hello, good evening, everyone. Great to be here. So I'll start first with a bit about myself. I was born and grew up by the sea on the south coast in the lovely town of Bournemouth. In my 20s, I worked for 2 years as an IT contractor with Siemens in Munich, and later, as a postgraduate student, I studied in Paris, following lectures by the well-known philosopher Michel Foucault, and I had a chance to meet and interview Foucault, and then afterwards again to translate and edit and write about his work. My working career has been in various combinations of IT, research and healthcare. I organised and managed several big EU-funded international R&D projects, another wonderful experience which taught me about communication, collaboration, European team working and herding cats. I was in charge of hospital patient IT systems and ran a project in shared care data standards for the NHS, working with amazing doctors and nurses in an inspiring professional culture. So these have been some ways I became a European and also learned some skills which I've tried to bring to local and national campaigning in the pro-European movement, and learned some values which made me care about our success. I got involved with my local campaign group, Oxford Europe, and then in national campaigning issues at the end of 2016, and I've been involved continuously and pretty actively since then. I've been closely involved with Grassroots for Europe, working alongside Richard Wilson from the outset. I think we should allow ourselves a bit more grassroots and Remainer pride in what we've done. We haven't always had much credit from the pundits, but we've built a remarkable movement. We've shown we know how to speak truth to power, and I'm convinced, especially this evening, that we won't be going away. But we can certainly continue to learn, adapt and develop and become smarter and more effective. I have my own thoughts about what went wrong in the Remain campaign, but that's probably for another discussion. I see the core mission of GfE as enabling and helping to build a strong, diverse and coordinated pro-EU movement, which from now on has to mean a pro-rejoin movement. This is not revolutionary because GfE and European movement already have the goal of rejoin in their mission statements. We just need to be open and clear about it. I'll come back, but first a word more about the pro-EU movement as a whole and about GfE's place. I'm a member of the European movement. I worked from the start to build good links with our local EM colleagues in Oxford, and I spoke twice on behalf of GfE to meetings of the EM branches forum. I know some people felt after the collapse of the People's Vote Alliance that EM should from now on be our single and unitary campaigning body. Some people are said to perceive the continued activity of GfE as disruptive or divisive in this context. But we know that many European movement grassroots people disagree, and GfE has proved its worth this year, as previously, in sponsoring new actions and hosting conversations with the wider pro-EU community, which absolutely must continue. The European movement is fully entitled to see itself as playing a leading role in our coming campaign to rejoin, and we should give it the support it needs and deserves. But I think that GfE may have two respectful suggestions for the incoming EM chair. One is to try to avoid overstated claims to a monopoly in voice and leadership, and the other is to continue its work of internal cultural change and renewal towards a more dynamic, open and, come on, say, slightly less top-down style. Finally, about the road to rejoin, I've written some thoughts about this on our website and in Northeast Bylines. I've argued, as Will Hutton does and many others here tonight, for a target to rejoin the EU by 2030. It's a tough assignment, especially at a time when our democracy is in danger, but a movement needs ambition and it needs a positive vision. And as a pro-truth campaign, we need to be fearless truth tellers. We need to empower others to speak the truth as well. And we need to tell people the truth that Brexit has been a mistake and EU membership is in our overwhelming national interest. It's a big, complex task with lots of parts and stages, and there's plenty of room for different approaches at varying speeds. And it will take time and patience. But in my opinion, we need to declare ourselves soon, and we need to get started as soon as possible. The other evening in our webinar, 2 sentences, John Liz was asked what pro-EU groups should do, and his answer was campaign for what you believe in. I thought that was a good answer. Thank you very much, and thanks for the chance to be a candidate in this election.
Thank you, Colin. Now we come to Tamsin Shasha, who is also standing for Vice Chair as well as a council member. You've got 5 minutes, Tamsin.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Tamsin, and I'm an award-winning Sussex-based theatre maker and artistic director of a charity. I am committee member of Brighton and Hove for EU. I'm also a writer, and one of the social media content managers for Sussex Bylines. I'm a proud and passionate European who also happens to be British, and more recently, a political activist. I've been campaigning alongside grassroots organisations like Women for Europe, Best for Britain, March for Change, and other leading pressure groups, including the European Movement and Grassroots for Europe for the past 5 years, often with my little boy, who's now 9, in tow, handing out flyers and campaigning at that time for a second referendum. It seems like only yesterday when I was up at Millbank with my wheelie case, collecting flyers for the People's Vote campaign. I've campaigned on the streets in Brighton, Lewis, London, and around the country, circulating flyers and stickers wherever I went, especially when on tour with one of my shows. My favourite moment being back in Brighton was when I managed to convert a Brexiteer who, after our long conversation, said that she would be voting Remain if there was a second vote. I was with fellow protesters outside Parliament when the Letwin Amendment was passed, and the roar from the crowd was deafening. I even waved my flag in the middle of the Olivia Theatre at the National that same day and felt that the future could be ours. Okay, so we lost that fight, but I believe membership of the EU is worth fighting for. What I can bring to Grassroots for Europe is vigour and vitality, a sense of humour, empathy, possibly theatricality, and commitment. Those who know me, including my fellow BH for EU group, can confirm that I'm as likely to be protesting on stage via protest songs or swinging from a trapeze, which I hope I'll be doing at COP26 in November, not to mention our Festival of Europe, as I am to be pounding the streets, which doesn't mean that I'm any less committed to the cause. It just means that I have varied methods of attack at my disposal. Recently, I've gone back to studying and I've nearly completed the edX MIT Leading from the Emerging Future course. This is relevant for GfE as it's encouraged me to look at things differently. In terms of learning skills and leadership, I can see that positive gains can be made from deep empathic listening to those with whom we don't agree and trying to find common ground, exposing the lies and fake benefits surrounding the nationalist sovereignty narrative, so much a part of the Leave campaign. We do this by working closely with our partners in the European movement, Best for Britain, Scientists for EU, and the Byline Times Network, all of the other vital grassroots organizations to change the narrative. We need to counter the spurious claims that we as a nation will be richer for leaving the EU, highlighting the fact that our isolation from Europe will only benefit those who are already rich. By making Britain a tax haven for the wealthy, for example, we need to highlight the truth around our shared values of decency, unity, environmental responsibility, and collective prosperity. Values that are all inclusive, embracing of all cultures, genders, and sexualities. Given that we've left our neighbours across the channel, what I think we should do now is build bridges slowly but incrementally back to our European partners. We do this by engaging with and supporting our local communities, especially for those that voted to leave. This means having uncomfortable conversations, citizens' assemblies where our members are versed in facts, not fiction. For example, exposing Michael Gove's dodgy Brexit fish quotas, highlighting the long-term loss of GDP on our economy due to our lack of access to the single market and the customs union, and the impact that this is having on small businesses, in particular, some who have already shut shop. This is a nationwide strategy to exert pressure on the government to really, in their own words, build back better. For example, if they're really interested in a green industrial revolution, they should support the climate and ecological emergency bill. If they really support culture, they should renegotiate the Europe-wide visa-free permits for touring artists and musicians. This is the lifeblood for freelancers like myself and will decimate the creative industries. I feel deeply betrayed by the government for their inability to secure a bilateral arrangement with our EU allies on this subject. We work together, we lobby, we mobilise youth action, we challenge so that when things start to unravel, as they already have, and things don't get better. Oh, I've got 10 seconds left.
That's the half minute.
My timer going.
No, that's the half minute call.
Oh, okay. We don't get, they are, if they already, and things don't get better, we are there, all of us, to shine a light on their failings. I think our long-term goal has to be one of rejoining the EU, but I think it may be too early to push that aggressive narrative now. What we can and must do is to assert pressure on the government to lobby for the best future relationship, damage limitation, I guess, with the end goal of full European Union membership. As a passionate pro-European, I think I have enough energy to shine the brightest light for Europe whenever they're ready to have us back and as soon as we're ready to return.
Thank you, Tamsin.
Sorry.
Thank you, Tamsin.
Thank you.
Next person on the list is Fiona Wishlade from Scotland. Fiona, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Fiona Wishlade, and being a W, I'm quite used to coming near the end of things, but it's still hard to find much to add that's new after so many excellent and varied interventions. But perhaps to take the questions that we were given in reverse order and start with the macro one of what are my perspectives on rejoining the EU. Well, first, here if I didn't want to, and I didn't think it was possible. But I'm agnostic about setting a timescale. Many people will have heard Gina Miller and Will Hutton earlier this week talking in terms of 5 or 10 years. Now, I don't know if that's possible, but I think we have to both chip away, making small gains, like hopefully Erasmus in some parts of the UK, as well as changing the public mood and pouncing as soon as it shifts enough to make rejoining a possibility. We have to be tactical, strategic, and opportunistic. But there's also a very particular Scottish and perhaps increasing dimension to this, which is crucial. And while it might not always seem obvious, I think it's key that the different parts of the UK work together on a rejoin agenda, preventing the UK diverging from EU standards and supporting a progressive alliance in Westminster to facilitate rejoining one member state or more. What Roots for Europe should now be undertaking? Well, I think it's a great initiative, and I was very happy to be at the big meeting last January, and there are already many great things underway too. I think the key things are sharing and coordinating, but not duplicating, and ensuring that there are differentiated approaches. There have to be horses for courses. We can gain a great deal by sharing our understanding of what's happening in our own localities, sharing skills and techniques for things like surveys, focus groups, statistical studies, and so on. We also need coordinated actions that help us to break out of the bubble and stop us constantly speaking to ourselves. And we need a concerted effort to influence political parties, because unless the current government is replaced with one with a different EU agenda, then little can change. A big thing to finish off with that Grassroots for Europe can do is keeping everyone's spirits up. I think it was fantastic to see more than 500 people on the open forum earlier this week, and people I think were really boosted to see that there were that number of people from all over the country who were still sufficiently motivated after the failings and disappointments of the last year or so. Last, the micro level, what qualities and experience can I bring? Well, I'm English, but I've lived most of my life in Scotland. I'm not sure if those are qualities exactly, but I think they give me a good understanding of the specific challenges and tensions that are at of the Scotland-UK EU relationship at the moment, and are set to become increasingly complex in the next few months. I'm a member of Glasgow Loves EU, which is an activity which involves, or used to involve, getting very, very Saturday afternoon. It's tied into the Scottish Local Groups Forum, and I'm on the executive committee of the European Movement in Scotland. So I'm a tiny cog in a mini federal structure, which in the end covers all of Scotland. My work background is as a research professor in European policies at Strathclyde University. I work mainly on state aid, for which has been interesting times, as you can imagine, and on structural funds and researching regional inequalities throughout the EA, and I've travelled quite widely there. it's a self-funding department that has had to set up its own base in the Netherlands, and I'm a director of that foundation, so I have some first-hand knowledge of the complexities of trying to do business from the Netherlands as well. And in spite of having set that up, we still don't know if it'll be enough. I'm more of a backroom bod and an information gateway than a kind of extrovert front person. But I'm used to working in teams and leading them, and with others from our group launched a tactical voting website for Scotland. And last, like Tamsin before me, I think a bit of humour goes quite a long way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you. I'd remind everybody the order of candidates is random and was chosen earlier from a hat by Caroline. We've got 2 more, and I'm pleased to see that the number of participants is holding up very well, actually, considering we're almost an hour and a half in. The next one is Peter Cook.
Good evening. Thank you for the invite. I'm not a continuity candidate for anything. I started life at 5 when I wanted to be in the Beatles. The jobs are all gone, even Ringo's. When I was 13, I wanted to be a brain scientist, but in fact, I failed at that. But I ended up working for Wellcome, the philanthropic pharmaceutical company. I was proud to do a long time working there in the sort of spirit of the sort of Quaker movement, companies like sort of Pilkington and Cadbury's, worked on human insulin and the first HIV/AIDS drug. Then moved on to teaching MBAs. I thought management was poorly done in the company, so I got one and then taught them for 18 years to properly learn it. And 27 years ago, I left all of that behind and started life as a self-employed business consultant, public speaker, and I've written 12 books on business. Clever sod, I suppose you might say there. Certainly not the continuity candidate, but actually quite a solid career. In Brexit terms, I'm an all-round activist. That means I do stuff on the street, where I am in Mid-Kent. I started on the street pretty early in this, in number 10 Vigil, worked with the EU Flag Mafia, worked with Grassroots, been up to Leeds, with the bollocks to Brexit Mini, got arrested, which many people know me for, but there are cleverer things I've done than that. So I worked with the EM and various other people. Written 3 albums of poignant Brexit material, and some of it quite sarcastic and satirical as well, and wrote a book on Brexitism, which sounds like you have to turn your head 180 degrees round, but no, it's actually about what was said earlier, about listening to people for a long, long time, letting them unfold their story, and then you find at the bottom of that story, all they've got is that they dislike garlic or something. Really takes a lot of time, patience and energy. I wrote a how-to book on that. Okay, what therefore can we do now, really, is the thing. There are 4 things I think we can do. I do believe we don't have to wait years and years and years. We're in a disruptive time. We can break parliamentary paralysis. We can use Nigel Farage's methods on them, but with heart and values, rather than copying Nigel Farage. Nobody here wants to copy Nigel Farage, not even his dress sense. So, you know, we can use those divide and conquer strategies to change the mathematics, because we are in very, very dark times and things can happen that we don't expect. In fact, most of the things that have happened in the last 4.5 years have been disrupted. There have been things we haven't expected. We can change mainstream media by infiltrating mainstream media. I am quite good at getting publicity for things. I've been in everything from The Guardian to The Sun. I had to get 2 black eyes to get into The Sun, but hey ho, that's life, isn't it? So no, we do need to get serious narrative into mainstream media, and that means we need to learn their language, which means behaving a bit like them to make a different case, perhaps a shorter case sometimes, rather than the lengthy academic stuff. We also need to dominate social media. I don't mean dominate in a sort of sense of owning it, but we have accelerator groups to multiply our impact on social media, so we change that narrative. Because Brexit was won in part because of media dominance. So we need to dare to go there. Lastly, we need to do this therapy work with Brexitism and actually dare to talk to people who are either disenfranchised or in fact still believe that there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Practically in the near future, I'm working with Martin Housden and some others around Scotland, Northern Ireland and London and Kent to actually work on the local elections to disrupt the unstable majorities in those elections, perhaps the red wall as well. But we're working on that, and I probably will be working with others in that, because we really must work together. A problem with Remain has been these silos, which I know very well as an organisational consultant, but we've gold-plated them. So we really must work together. I think there's an opportunity now to do that. In terms of Rejoin, I think it's going to be really difficult, because unfortunately we have a deal and not no deal. I think Rejoin would have been much easier under no deal, because we'd have had chaos by now. But we have a slow death rather than a sudden death. We need to cut the heads off the Brexit culture carriers before we can even consider that, which probably means removing them. I don't mean literally cutting their heads off, but actually, you know, removing the people who represent Brexit England, or Brexit Britain, if you will. There are many scenarios to rejoin, and disruptive ones, and I don't think they rely on an election to do it. So I think there could be breakpoints before we get to that. We must engage, we must hold people to account, and we mustn't let the grass grow under our feet. We need to grow more grass, and we need to go back to our roots, which sounds like a song. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And now, last but by no means least, we have Chris Hammond.
Guten Abend and good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Hammond, and I'm speaking from Würzburg in northern Bavaria. I otherwise live in Canterbury. I'm European through and through, and grew up in both England and Germany. I'm fluently bilingual with an English father and a German mother. Europe is a given for me. My background and curiosity have given me a sound knowledge and sense of European geography, history, culture, society, and politics. I have an understanding of people, their outlook, and of different cultures. My career background is teaching German, some French, and sixth form critical thinking in UK schools, and English in Germany. Teaching necessitates being aware of and sensitive to people's needs and leading them to a given goal. It's vital to ensure that you take people with you. Daily practice honed my communication and explanation skills. I organised the annual German exchange to Würzburg, lasting 25 years, and also an annual trip to German Christmas markets. For these, I held presentations to parents. To top all this, as mountain leader, I managed the GfE Gold Scheme with 4 expeditions a year. Managing all this, I had to be well organised, efficient, and thorough. In my spare time, I enjoyed running and orienteering, leading to enjoying challenges of annual mountain marathons. Completing such events requires plenty of stamina, determination, and energy. I relish new challenges. I believe I can inspire and enthuse people as well as reach out to them. I happily engage with people of all backgrounds. So what is my activism to date? At the moment, I'm coordinator of Kent Bylines. I'm on the working party of the Festival of Europe, membership secretary of EChem, committee member of Canterbury for Europe. I've been involved in street stalls, delivering leaflets, motorway bannering, and on all the London marches. I've assisted on the Save British Farming campaign. Here in Würzburg, I was the UK rep for Europe Day in May 19, and I have a contact in the Europe Direct office. At this point, I'm going to deal with the last question, as the objective has implications for a strategy. I'm confident we will rejoin the EU. The sooner, the better for the country. I say that with resolve and determination. Both are needed. I see it as a two-pronged approach. Firstly, promoting the idea of Europe and advocating the benefits of the EU. Secondly, protecting and reforming our democracy. By necessity, the route to rejoin involves reforms to our democracy. They go hand in hand. Recently, Gina Miller and Will Hutton made many noteworthy points. The longer we delay, the worse a state the UK will be in. With opposition to the current government increasing, it could collapse possibly. Alternatively, there could be an economic mini boom, which could lead to a public feel-good factor. In either scenario, there could be a general election sooner than later. So the pro-EU movement needs to be ready sooner than later. So what should Grassroots be undertaking? It needs to have a short, medium, long-term strategy, all of which need to start now. So in the short term, it should collaborate with the other national groups, which is in fact already happening. It should establish link persons in local groups to disseminate information, support local groups to consolidate their membership, raise awareness of national groups and events among dormant groups and members, establish and maintain links with the EU and member states, create working parties to address particular areas and issues, continue to call out the effects of Brexit, continue to hold the government to account, propose a thematic programme of coordinated campaigns nationally. In the medium term, which I think should be post-corona, it should promote Europe and the positives of the EU, promote national events like Europe Day and the Festival of Europe, and support campaigns for PR. In the longer term, the road to EU membership, it should regenerate a factual background to politics through citizens' journalism and the bylines, develop a greater national understanding of intercultural competence, develop and encourage media literacy as compared to the Finnish model, persuade national TV channels to develop and produce programs about democracy like we get here in Germany more or less every day, and finally establish a national centre for political education as exists here in Germany. Finally, I'd like to say it's the duty of those elected to serve their followers. I am ready to serve Grassroots. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Chris. All I can say is, wow, I think 73 groups have quite a task on to choose from those candidates. What a variety of people, but also diversity, and it frequently came out, passion for Europe. I think everybody who's involved in Grassroots for Europe should be proud of that we've got such good people all wanting to contribute. As elections committee, I would say there are lots of things you can do with Grassroots for Europe, even if you're not elected to the council, and I would hope that would happen. A reminder that all 73 groups will get the voting via an email. They have to follow that email and get through. Of course, I'll be available as best I can all of next week via email should there be any issues. Should be fairly straightforward, and in just over a week, on the Tuesday, Wednesday, possibly the Tuesday, we'll be announcing the result. Anything from you, Caroline, before we call it a day?
Just fantastic, wasn't it? An amazing range of experience and passion to bring to Grassroots for Europe is really exciting.
I think it says a good thing about where we are now with Grassroots for Europe, that there's been such good contributions this evening. And I'd like to thank everybody who did contribute, and not forgetting the two who could not attend.
Yeah.
Obviously, their written statements should be read carefully.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything from you, Andy, before we?
No, just to echo what you said. I thought the quality right the way through was absolutely terrific. I remember it's actually 25 years ago. I remember recruiting a sales manager, and we actually were split between two candidates who were both excellent, and in the end we decided to employ both of them. So I really hope that we'll find roles for everybody that's presented tonight, because they all deserve it, and the quality of presentations was absolutely terrific.
Yeah.
And finally, I'd say not too many people seems to have dropped off the call, so not too many fell asleep. I think that says something about the quality of the presentations as well. And the timekeeping was remarkably good.
Yes.
So thank you, everybody. And
just for me to say thank you, John, because you didn't realize what a project this was when you undertook it. And it was a lot of hard work. So we all appreciate you getting us here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I just hope the election goes well and FD gets in very easily. And if not, drop me the line at the usual elections at type email address that you will have all have in your inboxes. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Only today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.